Hello, folks. Hello. Welcome to a Techthusiasm live podcast. It's been another minute, another few weeks since I've been able to get online. All kinds of things happening in and around life and the Techthusiasm home theater. But we're here tonight. This should hopefully be an interesting one. Maybe some contentious discussion. The first of maybe my most contentious videos yet went live. And I actually pulled it. So I've been doing some work in the theater. What I thought was pretty awesome. I relocated the projector with a new install setup and all that. Made the vlog, and some folks didn't like the vlog. I'm being a little facetious or kind of grandstanding it a little bit. There was some constructive criticism that I think was suggesting that I didn't do a really good thing, and I should be careful about this video because it's going to lead to people doing wrong stuff. Not necessarily that the video was advice to say, hey, go do what I did, but people may copy me, and some folks were feeling that if other people did that with their projectors, they could have some problems with them or void their warranties and things like that. And there was a couple like straight up this is a really bad idea feedbacks. Thankfully, no, like you are dumb and your comb over is ugly kind of comments, nothing like that. But so anyway, I pulled the video. I didn't want to, I didn't have the time and focus and whatnot to, especially this week, to deal with a bunch of discussion in the comments. And I didn't want the comments to kind of derail the video. So I'm like, screw it. I'm going to take it down for now, and we'll revisit it later. It's a shame too, because the video was flying. The video was flying right away, and I think it would have had some good legs to it. So I have some plans for it, but we're here tonight. So we're going to talk it through. We're going to talk through what I did, and if any folks, fire away. Absolutely, constructive criticism and all that. I'm ready for it. Let's discuss. I may end up further optimizing what I did, but I think one of the things in the video, and particularly the picture that I put up, if you only watched to the midpoint of the video and you only saw my community post, if I would have left the projector that way, I agree. It would not have been a great choice. It would not have set a good example for projector installation. But I didn't stop there. And I think where I ended up is actually completely fine. And quite honestly, way better than a lot of other installs that I've seen, plenty of other installs of projectors that are sandwiched very tightly up against walls that they're shooting through or stuck into cubbies and hush boxes and all of that. So I think this will be a fun discussion, hopefully. We'll see how long it goes, how much fun we're having, who's out and in. If there's more time tonight, maybe we'll get into some initial MadVR thoughts that's been going on and other things around the space. But life has been something else, quite honestly, in these last few weeks. On the personal side, I'm still kind of dealing with my coffee and figuring stuff of that stuff out. I did get a clean bill of health from my cardiologist, so I was happy about that. My problems are not heart related. My heart is strong. I got away on a little trip. I had a business trip that took me down to Florida and actually got to check out Universal Studios. That was pretty neat. The Harry Potter zone in Universal is pretty wild. I wasn't super impressed by the Marvel zone. Unfortunately, I'm not a big roller coaster rider, so I only did a couple minor ones there. Some crazy, unfortunate, sad stuff happening as well. My boss at work actually passed away this last week, so there's a lot of things going on there. Family time, it's birthday month for my kids. That's in full swing right now, and by birthday month, I mean they both have birthdays in the same month, not that we celebrate their birthdays all month long. So it's been wild. It's been fun. It's been sad. It's been tiring. But I'm still finding some time to tinker around in the theater, which is why everybody is here. I will say just very quickly on the MadVR front that the MadVR is really cool. I have really enjoyed experimenting with it, playing around with it. I've only begun a flow of content about it. I've got a list of specific video topics that I plan to knock out about specific elements of the MadVR, like how it's working in the system, particular integration pieces and all that. The folks there have been incredibly accommodating in terms of answering questions and engaging discussion about it. They put me through basically uh, a whole training, like a live training session. So I feel pretty good about understanding the device, what it can do, how to set it up, and more to come on that. So let's say hi to a few folks and we'll dive into the contentious discussion of the evening. So a bunch of regular friends are with us here. Julius, welcome. Hello, Ren. Michael, how's it going? And drops on. You should have read the AVS comments when I posted. Yeah, I wondered actually. I almost just left it up and said, "Hey, maybe controversy is cash, right? That's how it goes." And see where. And I ended up probably all over Facebook groups and the internet, being hung up as some kind of home theater moron. But I think there would have been an equal side of the discussion that would have been like, "This is like perfectly good and everything is pretty great with it." So but whatever. I have a plan. I have a plan for what I'm gonna do with the content and I will get it out. But if you're here live tonight or watching this video after the fact, you kind of get much more of the kind of deeper discussion, the whole thought process and all of that behind it. Rob James, hello, hello, welcome. Yeah, good controversy, good for content. Yeah, we'll see. Hobo, welcome. Life's too short to care what others think. Yeah, I know. I didn't have the time. I didn't have the time to deal with it, and I didn't want comments to go sideways on what I thought was an interesting video. But we'll see. We'll see how it goes. Yeah, Julius. Yeah, thank you for that. He was a really great guy. I worked under this person several years actually. He was responsible for some of the biggest growth, or my manager during a period of some of the biggest growth of my career, building up my engineering teams and products that we were able to ship, and mentoring and just learning. Just a really great guy all around. Far too young to go as well. Just nothing is guaranteed. It has me thinking about a lot of things. I'm thinking about a great many things this week. So. Michael, how much is the group buy? Oh, MadVRs. Yeah, we'll see what we can do. We'll see what we can do. My finest. Yeah, I can't believe how butter the keyboard warriors get when they see a normal dude post a pic. Yeah. Yeah, right. Yeah, like it needs a hermetically sealed, safe room with 24 inches of clearance on all four sides. Like that's the reality of most of our spaces. All right, so let's dig into this. So let's start with a history lesson, and we'll proceed kind of into what I was doing this past week. So here's the room, right before the theater. So let's keep in mind right off the bat, my room was not from the studs designed to be a home theater. It was actually designed to be a gym, hence the big mirrors on the walls, the hardwood floor, the ceiling fan, and all that stuff. The big old glass block window to let some natural light in while you're down in the basement working out, so on and so forth. But along the way, we used it for a storage room, hence it had all this stuff sitting in it, right? And yeah, I would have never put glass panels on the entry door to a home theater, right? All these things. So we turned it into the home theater, definitely doing the projector setup in the home theater. And I aligned it from the very beginning that the wall we're looking at here, okay, right? The wall, see my mouse, this is a closet, not the entry door. This is a closet. The back wall is where the projector went. And in the very beginning, I never really thought to use the closet because one of the things that I never wanted to do with the theater was tear a bunch of stuff up. That's the reason why, like, I still have white trim. It's oil-based paint, and I didn't want to deal with trying to repaint that stuff black. So there's concessions. There's concessions in the room that I wasn't prepared to majorly change. And trying to worry about using the closet as a projection room, I didn't feel like doing it in the very beginning. So I'm going to zip way ahead. Zip. My very first projector installation, there it is, was this. I tried to put a shelf sitting up above the closet. And I didn't do a very good job with this. I think I didn't get the right kind of support. It needed to be deeper, and the anchors, those L-shaped wall anchors and stuff, needed to be far longer to hold this. So what was happening very quickly after the shelf went in was the projector sitting on it. It was starting to tilt downward. So I said, okay, forget that. We're going to a ceiling mount, right? That's the next most viable option. Now I'm going to zip ahead. Let me find some pictures of the projector hanging up on the ceiling mount. I think this is the one. Okay, so I settled on, this was the install for a long time. This is actually the NX7. It's sitting on the ceiling mount. Notice there's actually 2 sets of holes there, these 2 bolts in the front. I actually at one point moved it back to try to get a little more throw distance between the projector lens and the screen. It's sitting here in the open air, possibly a little closer to the back wall than ideally would be, but it's got several inches of clearance behind it. And this is how I've been using it for a long time. This is how I've been using it for years. One of the things that I've talked a lot about on the channel is this is roughly 16 feet. Let's go, plus or minus a couple inches. Let's call it 16 feet. 16 feet of throw distance, right? 16 feet of throw distance is not enough to zoom up and fill a 163-inch diagonal scope screen, 235:1 scope screen. And I've accepted this for a while. I bought the little 5-inch custom panels from Seymour so I could just black out the space that I could never fill. And I would zoom up as much as I can. I would shift my image down to the bottom of the screen material. So in scope content and whatever, I got a little strip of unilluminated space up at the top. And I knew I would solve this eventually, right? I would solve it either by virtue of changing throw distance, or I would solve it as well by virtue of getting a different projector, ideally something like an NZ9 or an equivalent, which actually is able to get a bigger image. The 9 is able to get a bigger image at the same distance versus the NX7, the NZ7, and NZ8. However, as now I've got the MadVR thing going, and I'm thinking about like, where's my video chain endgame? And my video game endgame probably resides with a video processor, an NZ9, or ideally an NZ9 successor model. Hopefully, if they ship, they get announced and they ship this year, and then probably a lens. And so this has put me in, having the MadVR is really what spurred me to think about this whole thing quite a bit more, because it's really been a bummer, actually, an increased bummer with the MadVR to fill less of the screen, because you have this incredible video processor, again, right, that wants to fill pixels and fill imagery on the screen. And I'm compromised in terms of my coverage and blank spaces, leaving me with options like stretching vertically, perhaps, to fill some of that top space. And I'll say I'm not a big fan, I don't think, of stretching vertically. I don't know if it's a true thing to say that, like, you notice horizontal stretch less than vertical stretch, but it's really odd when like the top of people's heads are taller than they're supposed to be, right? When you're stretching in zones and stuff like that. So having the MadVR is really the catalyst to say, I need to change this. Really like to change this now, along with a couple other realizations as I was thinking more about the next steps. Certain things being, an NZ9 isn't going to hang here as nicely as an NX7 does. It's bigger, right, or slightly bigger, a couple inches deeper at least. And so that's going to actually take some throw distance away, even though it can put a bigger image up at the same distance, and it's heavier. Technically, my mount, I probably got this mount installed with enough heft to easily hold an NZ9, or the 50, 60 pounds that it weighs. I could probably hang off this thing and be fine. However, the mount itself is not spec'd for that. This is like a Chief RPA. So a different mount, dealing with all this stuff. And then I was learning more about lenses. I actually talked to the guys at Panamorph, talking to folks through MadVR about the ramifications of having a lens, and learning as well that a lens actually kind of makes things call for a slightly additional throw distance. So if the projector is going to throw a certain screen image at a certain distance, and then you put a lens on that projector, you're going to actually end up with a little smaller of an image because of optics and stuff like that. So I came to the conclusion through all of this, like, all right, it's time. I really like to solve this now so that I can fill the screen. I can have a setup that would easily accommodate a larger, heavier projector with no future adjustments needed, and be good to go. So ultimately, I have two solutions that I have available to me, I think, to solve this problem. One is ripping the room down to the studs and flipping it around 180 degrees and putting the projector in the room where the rack and the gear is, shoot through the wall, and put the screen on this back wall where the projector is right now. Give me plenty of space and throw distance to do all this stuff. That's not happening. That is probably a goal for this room if I live here in this house for a longer period of time, and the channel continues to grow and stuff like that. Um, one of the nice things about ultimately having the channel is the money that I make in the channel just goes back into stuff that I can do and make more content for the channel. So Techthusiasm isn't necessarily paying bills and feeding my family. It's a self-perpetuating opportunity. So if things continue to go well, we might be doing a project in a few years where we're tearing down to the studs and stuff like that. But definitely not now. There's nowhere near the cost basis and stuff to be able to do that. So what are we left with? We're left with the closet. And I've been thinking about that for a while. In terms of, okay, if we're going to use the closet, how do we use the closet? Let me zip back. Sorry, I need to take the screen share away. Let me zip back to a different photo, if I can get one, of the closet. Yeah, closet door. Which one was it? This one right here. So let's take a look at this again. All right, so if you had this set up, so one thing to keep in mind with this closet is, and we'll play the video and I'll pause and talk through it a little bit, but this closet is outside the foundation of the house. The foundation wall runs behind this studded drywalled wall, and there's actually like a U shape kind of like poured into the foundation because it's our chimney. In the room above my home theater is my living room. On the wall of the living room, right above this closet, is our fireplace. And so this closet extends all the way up inside to basically the ceiling. It's open air finished inside the closet. And we also, in all of our closets in the household, we had built-ins made out of like 3/4 inch plywood. So there's existing shelves and stuff sitting in here. Well, one of my thoughts initially was I'll hang the projector, put the projector up inside the closet, like up in here, knock a hole out, and it can shoot through the hole. And that might be the solution. However, that would have never really worked. And if I, one, I don't want to tear things up. I still didn't really want to tear things up that way that much. Two, there really wasn't space to do it. I measured it all out, and the interior depth of the closet is barely enough. It is enough to like fit the NX7 with some clearance. It's barely enough maybe to fit the NZ9. It definitely wouldn't have enough clearance, and it would have been a nightmare to try to access and get up in there and whatever. So talking, actually, it was the Panamore folks, talking to them. They're like, just take your door off and shoot through the closet. And I'm like, you know what? I probably should have done this 5 years ago. So that was the inspiration. So let's get the projector set in the closet. Let's put it on a shelf, not hanging on a mount, so it's more stable and secure. I'll talk more about that in a second as well. Let's just take the door off the hinges and get it out of here. And we have an opening. I can just shoot through the opening of the door, and it will put the projector further back. It will give me everything I need to fit the bigger unit. It'll accommodate a lens potentially in the future if I want one. All these things, right, work out really well. And so my initial thought was, well, I'm going to have to tear out the shelves that are in there. But maybe I'll play the video and we'll get to that part of it. But one of the other things that I want to stress, let's do this. Let's get to the video. So there's my intro explaining the project and everything. One of the other things about this projector, I'm going to pause it here. One of the other things about hanging from the ceiling, and this is an interesting element, I don't know if maybe other folks experience this as well, is this soffit, and this has been bugging me a lot more lately too. I'm happy to be divested removed of this condition. This soffit is kind of unstable. And what I mean by that is it has HVAC running through it. There's ducting that goes through there. But even more importantly than that, we have a geothermal heating and cooling system. And so we have big tubes that pump fluid out through these tubes out and buried in the backyard. The fluid goes through those and then it comes back into the house. And the pump is in the mechanical room, which is just over um, to the right of the projector. On the other side of that wall is the mechanical room. And through this soffit runs the tubes. They're kind of like laid in there in some wood framing through that soffit. And it's a powerful pump, right? We're talking about big tubes, a lot of fluid, a lot of pressure to move that fluid out through whatever hundreds of feet, I guess, of ground loops that are laid out in the backyard and then back into the house. That creates vibration. And I really just noticed this within the last few months is that like um, if the heat is running and the fluid is pumping and I go up closer to my screen, I can see like micro vibration, very minute micro vibration, but I'm sure that's like making the image effectively not look as sharp as it can be because you're taking something that's ideally razor sharp and crisp, right? And you're shaking it. It's introducing a minuscule amount of blur, and it's like, oh, you know what, that you can kind of feel the rumble of some of that vibration and or in and around the room and stuff like that, and it makes total sense. A ceiling mount suspended from this soffit, even though it's bolted very strongly through to the wood framing of that soffit, is shaking. And I can see too if I'm down in the theater and my son's up in the living room and decides to do his like whatever, leaping jump off the couch and slam down onto the floor, like that thing moves. It moves a lot. So if you have and it's solid, like it's solid and braced, but it's braced to something that in and of itself is transferring motion and energy. And I notice it too in our house. I'm sitting in the dead center in the middle of our main floor right now. And over in the other corner of our house is our washer and dryer, Samsung washer and dryer. And that dryer can move some vibration. I'll be in here when the dryer's running and I can hear like tinks and clinks and stuff like that. So to me, like getting a projector on a shelf is something that's a lot more stable against all of that household vibration versus a ceiling mount that has more of a likelihood to transfer that energy and be able to move in a vibrating way is something that maybe you want to think about in your installation. So I was eager to also kind of get rid of that nuisance and see essentially if my effective sharpness improves as a result of doing this. So another hopeful positive side effect of again wanting to make this change. So I filmed this video totally vlog style, literally just did it all with my phone, grabbed the phone out as I went through the process of this. I did it basically over the course of a couple of weekends because I evolved the plan as I went, as I saw pivots that I would need to make for better installation, better positioning, proper ventilation, and all that stuff. I think I made like 3 trips to Home Depot, picking stuff up and returning some things and trying some different things out. So we'll let this catch up. Good comment here. Drop zone. Yeah, screw plywood to the soffit, then mount the plywood in the vibration. Yeah, so that's ultimately, I think that would be another way to go to stick with the ceiling mount would be some kind of a decoupling. But regardless of that, I wanted to get off the ceiling mount because I knew it didn't have the size, the heft to be able to manage a bigger projector, and I wanted to solve the throw distance problem. So in the end, I did solve the throw distance problem, which is really nice. I gained more than 2 feet. Right now, I think the projector, it was just under 16 feet, and now it's like 18 feet 4 inches of throw. So, oops, I didn't mean to pause it. So yeah, I had those base traps, or still have them sitting on the stands. So this was all really easy to do. The curtain covers up the closet. Very easy to just move the base traps out of the way. And I knew I would end up like looking to cut a hole in the closet. So let's stop here. I think, well, we'll probably get a little bit better of a look in there. All right, let's stop there. So as you can see, there's a light in there. There's a chain, pull chain hanging down. It's drywalled, it's painted, it's finished, and we have the shelving unit in there. So the shelving unit it's bolted in there tight. It has plywood sides, plywood shelves, the facing, and all that. The back is just drywall, so there's not a plywood sheet on the back of the shelf, but everything is like 3/4 inch, birch plywood. Now, my initial thought before I got in there and really measured stuff around was, you know what I'll probably end up doing is like go to Home Depot, or I'll probably deconstruct this shelf, tear it out of here. I'll go to Home Depot and I'll buy like uh, a garage metal rack, and then just assemble that rack. Try to get the projector so that like the top of the shelf is like 65 inches or so off the ground, because again, I can't go any higher than the door jamb, and these are like 8 foot doors, right? 7 foot 10-inch doors, whatever standard spec for an 8-inch door is. And so the light path needed to get underneath the door jamb. But what I was finding at Home Depot is like all these metal shelves, garage shelves, they're all about 60 inches tall. And when I measured it, this shelf right here, where the mouse is, not the very top one, but the next one down, was actually like 60 inches off the floor. And my wife even said that originally. She's like, why don't you just use the shelf that's in there? I'm like, I don't think it'll work and whatever. But of course, she was right. After I started thinking about it, I'm like, this will actually work out pretty well, rather than ripping it out and just buying something to put in there. Let's try to use what's there. So that was my next kind of way forward to go about the project, figuring we'll get the projector on here on this shelf, and we'll go from there. Now, one of the things about it, this shelf is not deep enough to accommodate an NX7. You can see there's a wall gap right between the inside of the door jamb and the start of the shelf. This shelf is, I don't even remember what the spec was, 15, 16 inches deep. That's not even deep enough to hold, even if you had the very butt end of the projector up against the wall, which is not a good idea or advisable. The front feet wouldn't have anything to go on. So my first inclination was, all right, one of the things we have to do is we have to extend this shelf forward. And so that was step one of the thought of the project. We got to get a full plate, stable surface to be able to put the projector on, be able to pull it off the back wall so that it has room off of the back wall according to spec, according to JVC installation perspective, to be able to get it in there. And I have here, what is it? It's something like 30 inches from the door jamb to the back of the closet. So I have within the closet itself, and again, the doors, from the very beginning, I plan to take the door off, knock it off the hinges, just take it out of the room. And the curtain as well doesn't hang flush to the wall. The curtain is up at the top. There's dimensional lumber screwed in along the top of the wall, and then the curtain hangs on that. So everything's like kind of three-dimensional. So the curtain is out. There's plenty of space in here to do this, but I needed a surface to be able to just stably place the projector and pull it forward, right? Pull it forward off of the back wall. So because that is the intake, right? Per the comments, I know this. The back of the JVC is the intake. The hot air blows out the front. So you have to be able to let cool air, good air, get around the unit into the back so that air can flow to the front. It's funny too, because like, despite a lot of the consternation about doing this, I talked to multiple people about this idea, pro installer friends, industry folks, right? People that know home theaters, know installations, and it's like unanimously, man, like put the projector in the closet. Should have done that a long time ago. So I had going into this, I had the blessing of a lot of folks who I would trust to come over and do the projector install. So kind of just talking through here again, the idea of leveraging the shelf and some of the dimensions and the details and all that. So I think part of the reason that the video might have failed and maybe cast some doubt over the way the project worked and the project came together was I just cut all these musings together. So you really had to watch the video, because where I started talking about things is very different from where I ended. And so I think what I may end up doing ultimately is I'm going to keep all the footage, but I may record a new voice, like a completely new audio, essentially, and just record a whole voiceover for the whole thing, kind of qualifying the steps and stuff as I go. Because I think I think this worked fantastic. It's just great. And it's a good install. It's a stable install. I stand by it. Pretty dusty there, obviously. We don't go in this closet. It's been sitting closed for years, basically, behind the theater. One of the other things that I got to think about doing is now that the closet door is off, what else should I be using this closet for? Should I stuff it with material? Right? Is it basically like a big old bass trap unto itself, and I should move those other ones out away from being in front of it? So I got some more. So the whole use of the closet, the whole thing is definitely not over. So let's let me skip ahead. Okay, so here I'm talking about my ideas. So immediately another thing that I knew I needed to do is better support this shelf. Like, it's plywood, it's in there pretty solid. As a closet, you would be able to put a lot of stuff on these shelves and they wouldn't be coming down. But a 55-pound, 60-pound projector, not so much. I wouldn't trust something of that much value and that much cost just to this shelf to not have it come down or not have it sag or whatnot. So I know we needed some support. So that was the other thing, along with having a larger surface to set the projector itself on. The other thing that I knew I needed to do was add some support to this shelf, and make sure that it wasn't, nothing was bringing this thing down, and I could sit on it and stuff if I wanted to. So again, the back of the wall is not plywood. The back is just the drywall. The sides, though, are plywall that's very strongly secured through the drywall to studs on either side, of it. So if anybody has questions along the way, fire them out. Welcome, Bodie. Good to see you. Good to see you. All right, I guess I'm talking for a long time in this section. You can see I had some black seal around the door because I just had this door pulled closed and I didn't want it kind of rattling with subwoofer bass and stuff like that. That is inconsequential now. Yeah, drop zone. You sound like me 15 years ago. Don't want to tear things up. Yeah, well, we built this house, so everything. It's one thing about living here that I do like is we built it. It was architected. It's entirely our construction. We're the original owners, so I know every inch of it. I've got all the pictures of the framing, the construction. I could tell you where any stud is, where every piece of electrical is ran, all that stuff. So, but for my perspective for the room, I'm just trying to avoid some of those messes. But I'm definitely getting to the point now where we are making some modifications again and whatnot. So, all right, so here's my solution for the projector surface. Okay, let me go back and get the whole board in there. All right, so this is a two by two. Oh shoot, what was it? It was a cedar, or no? I think this was a plywood board as well. 3/4 inch plywood. Because I think Home Depot, they had them in 2x4, and I just at the store I just had them rip it in half. Um, and I figure what I would do is I'd get a 2x2 foot board, plenty of surface area to be able to put the projector on, shift it side to side, make clearance to be able to have space behind it. And you can see what I did here. I drilled 5 holes through. So what my plan was is essentially drop this board on the existing shelf, drill these prep these drill holes through it, get it in there, drill through the existing shelf, and then these are like 3/8 inch lag bolts. So I'll shove a 3/8 inch bolt through every one of these holes with a washer, then underneath washer and a nut, torque that thing down, and it's not it's not coming up, right? The back end, the butt end of this thing, isn't going anywhere. It's going to hold it stable, and I'll be good to go. So that was my plan there. Felt pretty sound. No projector is going to bring that shelf off of five bolts holding this thing together. I did paint it. I could have just thrown it in there. Really, who cares about that? But just in case lights are off, something you look through there, or I pull the curtain back and show somebody in the future. I wanted to paint it, so I painted it the same kind of black brown color that matches the shelves that are in there. Drop zones, yeah. So that, let's see. So that closet door wall is not just studded wall above the door. No, it is. So that whole back wall is a studded wall with the poured cement wall, spaced behind it. So above the door is there. I think there's actually one. There's the framing of the door. Those studs go all the way up to the ceiling, and then there's one stud in the middle. And there is an electrical wire that runs through there, kind of up and over the door, that is for all the outlets and stuff that are around the room. So it wouldn't have been a huge it wouldn't have been that big of a deal to knock through the wall above the door to make a light path, but it would have been so constrained inside there. I could have never fit a lens. It didn't have the space that I would have needed. So going through the door opening, and because actually being able to have the projector come out into the face of the door, and even beyond in the future with the lens, is going to be a requirement. So, all right. Oh, so let me go back. Or actually, so here, stop right here. So this was my initial thing. I went to Home Depot when I bought that board. We were actually skiing that day. My first time skiing in 20 some years. We got out once. I really digging it. My kids are getting into skiing. But I was done. They were staying at the hill. I ran over to Home Depot and I grabbed the board and I grabbed these little L brackets. You can see these metal brackets here. I figured like this is probably good enough. If I could get like two of them on each side, the shelf, it should be stable enough. I asked at the store about L brackets and shelf brackets, and I completely forgot about those larger triangular black ones that I used originally when I thought about a projector shelf idea. So I bought these, and then after the fact, I'm like, nah, I don't know that this is enough support, and I really want to get some more support out in the shelf. I just don't want any sagging. I don't want to deal with sagging. So I went back to the store and I bought these guys. We're going heavy duty here, right? These are like rated for 1,200 pounds, the biggest ones. And they'll have support with those angled brackets almost all the way out to the middle of the shelf, out in space. So I was already kind of stepping up the game a little bit in terms of wanting to make sure that we had all the good, proper support. Again, no sagging, anything like that. So I bought a bunch of screws, proper sizes and all of that to be able. And the other thing too, I didn't want any L brackets on the back wall, just because I didn't want to. I'd have to make sure to find the studs and hit the studs when I know if I went into the side walls for the shelf supports, I'm going right into that plywood that is already very clearly, strongly supported in the space. So, all right, so here's the shelf is in. Again, I had 5 3/8 inch lag bolts through there, washers and all. Torque these things down. You can see underneath, there they are, essentially through both sheets of plywood, and we're good to go. Phase one complete. I was a little bit concerned, almost similar to the first time that I used plywood to do this, which is if the projector sits too far out on the shelf, is the overhang actually going to start to dip? So I was already starting to debate that a little bit. Like, would I actually have to do something to better support the front overhang bit? Which I could do. I could put an L-shaped bracket out in the space between the door jamb. I'm sorry. So these are in between the door jamb and the shelves that are already in there. All right. So here, these brackets are in. I was going to get 4 of these. These are like rated for 1,200 pounds, I believe, for a pair. If you have a pair of these holding a shelf, and you hit studs, it's rated for 1,200 pounds. They didn't have 4 of them in stock at the store, so I just bought 2 of the beefy ones and then 2 slightly smaller ones. They're only rated for like 300 pounds or something. So I used the smaller ones in the back just because this wasn't exactly the easiest space to work in, getting in there with the drill and trying to sink all these screws in. So these screws are right into the plywood, and then I hit one screw underneath to lock everything in, keep it stable. So this thing is set now. Like it's not coming down. Um, it's not going. It's not going anywhere. So we've got all the heft, all the weight, everything we need to be able to stack several NZ9s on this shelf, and it's not coming down. I knelt down there and grabbed that bottom bracket and basically did a pull up on it. So all right, so here, still again wondering, thinking about that frontal sag and what and if that may be a problem. What I end up doing, I don't think I'll ever have to worry about sag again. But let it progress a little bit here. So, and coming up here, so I think people were asking about. Let me go back. There's a good view right there. So here's a good view. You can kind of see like up into the closet. There's just big open space up there, and it extends like several feet up to the top of the ceiling. And then there's a hanging like globe light fixture, and then through the floor, and then up above that is our gas fireplace upstairs. All right, so here we go. I think here's where the contention begins. This is not a good idea, right? Probably not a good idea. If I would have left it this way, with the projector in this cubby, even with some clearance on the back wall, this thing has to suck all of the air in where you already got hot air blowing out the front. All this air would have to go in to that space to get to the back to blow back out the front with this top shelf on. It's not breathing. It's not really breathing very well. I will admit that. This is not where I stopped. Notice the progress bar on the video. We're at 9 minutes of 24 minutes. So I did a lot more than this. This is the picture that I put up on the community page as well. And oddly enough, like feedback didn't kind of go wild on the community page. But again, it kind of, there's definitely some people questioning the validity of the installation in the comments of the video itself. But again, it's a project. It goes through its phases. So I had it ready. I had it ready for the projector. I wanted to put it in there, get an idea. What kind of throw distance did I really achieve? How is it fitting? What kind of play, side to side, front to back, did I have? Is my existing wiring going to reach? Do I have to re-pull or readjust any cables? Thankfully, everything reached just fine. And again, it's fitting in here pretty stellar, pretty immaculate. Feeling really stable and all that. And I think even here, I have it pushed back more than I have it now. I was just experimenting with the seating and getting a feel for all of it, and getting some initial adjustments and stuff kind of on the screen. Let me skip forward here. So yeah, looking forward, right? For the first time in my theater setup, I'm going to be able to pull, here we go. I'm going to be able to pull these panels off, say goodbye to the 5-inch dead panels on the far left and right of the screen. Hopefully they will never return to the Techthusiasm home theater. Let's skip ahead. So fired it up, take a look. And especially when it's in constrained air, probably don't tuck a bunch of cushioning around it, but this was temporary. But here we go. Finally, 163 inches of full-on screen. Loving it. So it really does change the impactfulness of the whole setup to be able to fill the screen appropriately. After having this now, I definitely would not want to go back to less than that. But so here's where I kind of noticed a couple things that were questionable in the install. And I think even in the vlog, I started talking about like being kind of concerned about airflow and being likely to need to knock out that top shelf. One of the things about that top shelf is it already had been removed. Because I think after the shelving was built, something happened and they needed to get up in there with the electrical. And they actually like knocked the top of the shelving unit out, even though it was all built in and secured. So I knew I could get that shelf out if I wanted to already. And I figured, yeah, I'll probably just pop it out, take it out. And then now the top of the projector will be completely open to the air. But here's the other problem that I had found. So I'm like 5'10", and this shelf is like 60 inches off the floor, which means roughly like plus or minus a couple inches. If I walked to stand in front of my chair, this is about the center of the room as well. So right, shooting right over my seat in the theater. So if I got up out of my seat and I turn around, my light beam, it's right here. It's like right in my eyes. And it was like borderline uncomfortable to walk around some parts of the room and look towards the back and not be like right dead eye in the light path. And it's painful enough when it's a lamp, right? A laser, you don't want to go looking, you don't want to go looking at your laser, and so they should have the auto shut off and stuff like that. So my wheels started turning a little bit, like, you know what? I had something like 10 inches of clearance from the top of the projector to the underside of the door jamb. Like I should probably raise this up, and I can knock the top shelf off. I'll still have a ton of open air clearance above it for airflow getting in and around and to the back. And depending on how I elevate the projector, I probably am even able to make a little bit of opportunity for air to get underneath it, almost kind of like suspend it in space a little bit. So I figured this would be better all around. And I knew that I needed to arrive at a final position before finalizing the installation, because I'm only cutting this curtain one time. um, right, I'm making essentially permanent damage to the curtain, and I'm only tearing into it once. So I needed to be really sure about the final resting place of everything before doing so. A couple comments to hit on. Drops on. Yeah, totally jealous. Which I had a closet in the rear room and centered. I have two double door closets, but they're offset. And depending on how offset, you might be able to get away with some lens shift. But if they're really far out there, then you won't be able to do it just with lens. Pavel asking what screen gain are you using. So this is a 163-inch Seymour Center Stage XD, acoustically transparent. I believe they rate them at like 0.8. The spec or something is like 0.8 or 0.9, but I believe the screen material is like measured at 1 or like just under 1, if I recall correctly. So one of the other things too, I'll completely admit, is an NX7 is not enough light for probably most folks. My room is a blacked out space, and especially with the MadVR and highlight recoveries and stuff like that, HDR and picture impact looks pretty good, but I'm only in the 50s in terms of nits, which is a problem, again, that I know I'll solve in the not too distant future with the new projector. So I've been running it dimmer than I may like, but acceptably fine. But I'll be very, very happy to have a brighter projector when the time comes. Pavel, I cut an airflow channel in the shelf below and blow cool air up. Yeah, so let's keep going. I know. So there's opportunity to do that actually, and I may very well do so. Like at least drill some airflow holes. So, but the way that I did it, it has some good opportunity as it is. All right, let me skip this. Talk about some other stuff that I did actually screw up. But I realized and I fixed it kind of as we go. One of my other thoughts too is I may just leave I was actually having a really hard time getting that ceiling mount down, the suspension pole, getting it to unthread. Oh my gosh, it's so tight. It's so tight. So it's still sitting in there, but I figured, like, you know what, maybe I'll just leave it. And now I've got the ability to like shoot off projectors and stuff. I was already thinking about doing like an AV meetup kind of thing with some of the Michigan guys, check out the MadVR and all that. And some folks had mentioned like, oh, I can bring this, I can bring my Epson, we can hook it up. It's like, well, if I leave the ceiling mount and somebody brings another projector over, we can temporarily hang a second projector. And who cares if the mount is just sitting there in the interim. So we'll see about that. But as it is, I couldn't get it off. I was using all my strength to actually try to unthread it. And I misremember something about how all the thing goes together and there's like a pin or whatever, but I was having a hard time. I think here I'm talking about what I talked about earlier, the fact that this is a soffit and like the micro vibration effect and stuff like that. But I tried to make this a pretty complete overview video discussion and kind of sharing all these points as I went through here, talking about the idea of this light being like right in the eye path, and what are we going to do about it? All right, so here's my solution. I debated a couple ways to kind of like shim it up, raise it up, put in some extra clearance and whatnot. And I figured, well, what if I just go to Home Depot? And again, I want to try and solve this fairly economically. I did this whole project for under $100. By the time I calculate out everything I bought and everything I returned, I think I'm like right at like $100 plus or minus like $5. So I went to Home Depot one night, took the kid to her activity, and then went to the nearest Home Depot and debated around what I wanted to do. Looked around at the different wood options, and what I settled on is I bought a 14-foot, one single 14-foot run of 2x4 dimensional lumber. And at the store, I had the guy cut it into eight 20-inch sections, I think is what they were, and then just threw the couple of excess inches away. And so my thought was, I've got 4 of these on each side. I'll stack them, and then the projector will go essentially on these stacks. And if I want to, in the future, if I need to have less, I could peel a top one off and bring it down. Um, but I was definitely concerned, like, I don't want to just leave the projector sitting on a stack of lumber and having it teeter and totter and move around. So I'm going to have to secure these. So basically, I figured I'll screw each one of these layers down, basically making a cake, right? We'll put the first one in, zip it into the plywood shelf, lay the next one in, zip that into the first one, and then so on and so forth. So these things they're solid. These little lengths of wood. And same idea is with the 2x4, the 2x2 piece of plywood. I didn't want to just put them in there, so I figured I'd go ahead and paint them. At least paint the faces and the edges and all the places that we can see. So here I'm talking about, like, yeah, there's like 10 inches, and I got a little over 10 inches of clearance. And so if you stack 4 2x4s, a 2x4 is an inch and a half tall, thick, depending on whatever dimension you want to call it. So 4 of those stacked together is 6 inches tall, which would still leave me with 4 inches roughly of clearance, because I do want to be able to reach in there as I need to, maybe, make adjustments. If I need to unplug something, plug something. And so here's the shelf, right? Again, the shelf is just resting in there. Really easy to just, well, relatively easy actually. I had to get a hammer and kind of knock it loose because it was in tight side to side. But I was able to do it. So there we go. I knocked the shelf out. I went ahead and grabbed the paint and just, again, super garbagey paint job, right? Not worried about fit and finish here. This is a closet. I just wanted all black brown. That's all. That's ultimately all I needed it to be. So there was some white and some drywall damage and whatnot from knocking that shelf out. No, just grab the brush and hit it all really easily. So again, when you look in there, you're not seeing the white. And then did kind of the cheapo paint job on the boards as well, just painting the edges, around the edges, the front face, and then on 2 of the boards, that'll be the top of the layer stack. I did paint them all the way on the top. So just did this really quick in the basement. One coat of paint. Now I did 2 coats of paint on the 2x2 plywood piece. Outside, it was a really nice day. We've been hitting like almost 70 degrees here in March, pretty wild. This stuff I just painted in the basement, 1 coat. Again, just want to get it done, get it on there, have it look halfway decent, and be happy with it. So here we are. Okay, so now the layers, the stacks are in, and again, these are secured. There's three screws in each board, 1 in the front, 2 in the back, and they're zipped in flush, tight, with each board, the bottom board screwed through to the plywood, and then each subsequent board secured to the one below it. They're not moving. They're butted up against the back as well. So nothing shifting, nothing moving here, whatever. If I ever wanted to zip one of these layers out, I could just pop those screws, zip, 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 take the top layer out, and then the other ones would remain secured. These are 2x6s, so they're like 5.5 inches wide. And with the gap that I used, plenty of room to be able to move a projector around as I need to. I spent a while looking at the dimensional specs. In the very end of the JVC manual, they have the foot pattern measurements, directions, and all that stuff. So I figured I'm good here. And now we've got a channel, right? I've got an air channel to go. Not only can the projector pull in air around the sides, up over the top, I've got all this big open space up above it in the closet, but there's also an air channel underneath it now, down in the front. And so pulling the projector up off the wall, leaving a gap behind there, all this space all around it for air to go through. So going back to one of the other comments as well, I would have the ability, if I wanted to, potentially, if it proves advantageous or if I feel I want to, I could cut holes. I could honeycomb this, right? I could make a bunch of openings in here. I could even possibly come over on the sides and zip some holes in there, and even let more air kind of pull up and through the shelf below it. So I've got some options. You can kind of see in that view, right? There's screws in the front, screws in the back, all nice and solid. Can't move it. It's not moving anywhere. No micro vibrations, no tilting. And I figure as well, this will also solve and prevent a concern about the front of the shelf dipping. Like one 2x2 piece of plywood can have some play in it. 4 pieces of 2x6 are not going to bend under the weight of the projector. So I don't think I have to worry about any longer now about bracing the underside front of this board, because these things are secured in the back and they're not, I just can't see them bending or dipping forward at all. Supernova. What do you like better, the Envy or the Lumigen? Yeah, we'll hold that question. We'll come back. I'm seeing some comments. We're almost done with this kind of finalization of the project here. All right, so we're about to put the projector back in, final resting place, above eye level. It really did work out very well, being above eye level. So there we go, right? Nice and stable. Look at that. We got several inches on each side, 6 inches plus the feet height underneath, several feet above the unit. It's I don't know what the spec inches, several inches off the back wall. The ability to pull it even more forward if I feel I need to. I just can't. I don't know. I don't know why I got such a hard time for this. This is like a bigger hush box than what I've seen in almost every install I've ever been in. And if I need to, I can tweak it. What I might end up probably doing is putting like a temperature probe or something in there and watch a movie, keep it on for a little while, keep an eye on it, get an idea for like kind of where does the temperature of the where does the temperature inside there start versus where is it after an hour, after 2 hours, after 3 hours, and make sure that right that it's okay, it does the job. And we did already watch a movie after this final install. We watched Migration on the Kaleidoscape. That was a really fun movie. Liked it. And I can't say that I noted like fan noise was any louder. It's actually muffled now. So overall, I don't hear as much fan noise, but it's not like the thing ripped up. Yeah, exactly. Right. Drop zone right there. You'll know the fans will ramp up. Didn't happen. I had it on for hours, early, even before the movie, during the movie, the whole movie. And it was good to go. Yeah, we got a duck for one seat. So actually, when it was at the lower position, sitting in my chair, it was like the light beam's going basically right over my head in the middle of the room. And if I sat forward and I really kind of like extended up, you could see the top of my head and the bottom of the screen. So with the 6 extra inches makes 6 inches makes all the difference. And it's good. It clears my head quite nicely. So I wanted to hit this question here. Yeah. Is the shelf attached to the back wall or is there a space behind it? So it is. It is the side pieces of plywood. So right here, there's like a fascia piece, but the plywood. This goes all the way to the back. So there's no gap behind it. But my saving grace again is I could easily just pull the projector out momentarily, cut a bunch of holes here and in the back or completely underneath that and let even more air get kind of like up and under if I really needed to. Sam, oh hey, welcome Sammy, nice to see you. Yeah, that works. You have airflow moving underneath and an open top. Yep, if you wanted to. And so yeah, I could do absolutely. I could position some fans around here. I've got a lot of flexibility to do more if I feel I need to do more, or the projector tells me ultimately that I need to do more. But I'm gonna do a temperature probe, um, temperature monitoring kind of thing, and we'll see where it goes. Drop zone. When I posted photos of mine, easy bake oven. It's funny. All right, let me get this playing again. So everything fit in there. Oh, you can see one of the other things that I did get this gave me the easy occasion to prep for a second HDMI run. So I can do some things like run MadVR tone mapping on one input and JVC tone mapping on another input. I plan to do that coming up. So here, these other white things on the wall, these are my cable channels that before were going like up and over the door. So the HDMI, the Ethernet, the long power cable for the projector were going in some of these channels, and the speaker wire to get over to the other channels also kind of went up and over the door. Now I could just kind of go through the closet easier, but I'm not going to rejigger any of the wiring. But I do right now the second long fiber optic HDMI. It's just coiled up in the closet. I need to run it through the channels and get it to the rack, and then I can play around with having that either on the pass-through port of the NV, or I can have it on just the HDMI, second main zone HDMI of the AVM90. And so, yeah, I got to figure out what to do with the rest of these shelves. Like, what should I do? Should I pack it with material? I don't know, or just leave it, I guess. There's the plate. Excuse me, the mounting plate for the chief mount. I just set it in the back of the closet there. Right. What I want to get is the final shot. Oh, we got to talk about the cut through. That's kind of the final step. So, like, I'm digging this. I think this is just crazy good. The system is so much better. And again, filling the screen, I'm loving it. All right, so this is a little cheapy. My wife even commented. She's like, "You made an ugly hole in your expensive curtain." I'm like, okay, I did. It looks, the closer you get to it, the worse it looks. I tried to give it a little bit of a rectangular uh, shape to it and tried to cut it clean. I was in there with the scissors. It's the thing about it is the curtain doesn't just hang like a flat old piece of fabric where I can cut a simple square or whatever. It's pleated, so it's really hard to try to cut. Um, and I did end up opening the hole up a little bit more. So here's other elements of the setup, right? Um, I don't know actually what the clearance is behind the curtain for the projector right now for the hot air. If I really have to, I can make this hole be the whole front size face of that projector. So completely like unobstructing entirely the exhaust of that hot air. Again, the curtain, this is not a sealed system. The curtain is not sealed to anything. It's free hanging out in front of the wall. So there's room, there's airflow underneath it. There's airflow kind of through all the sides. Yeah, drop zone saying, yeah, I would make that larger. And the other thing too, probably like an NZ9 plus the lens is itself going to extend past the curtain. So as I work towards that point, more than likely, I think with the depths and making sure that the unit has some clearance behind it to be able to have airflow and for air to get everywhere it needs to go. It's going to come forward, and more than likely, I will just open up the whole face, basically of the of the projector. Otto saying, is the glass optical or plain glass? I'm not sure what you mean. If that's the glass of the, there, I'm not shooting through any glass. This is just a cut opening, just open space in the curtain. So no optical considerations there. A couple comments. Yeah, make it a base trap. Talking about the closet, pack it with rock wool. Oh, that's what I'll probably do at some point. So yeah, again, the picture as presented, it's a little bit tighter, but this fabric is very light. This is not heavy drape, heavy like acoustical fabric or anything. It's a real light velvet, black velvet is what it is. So I probably need to go down and see like some of the hot air that is hitting to the edges of the curtain. What does it feel like? Is it, can I actually put my hand on this side of the curtain, right, and feel kind of warm air propagating through? So I'm not done. Maybe I should have, maybe this is the other thing I could have done would be to have held off on the vlog until I had a little more full on measurement time, and time to confirm that everything is working well and all that stuff. But I thought I had done enough to make, it's already 24 minutes long. And I thought I had some interesting content to go ahead. So I put it together and buttoned it up and put it up like this. And Dropson saying, cut a wide rectangle, use hemming tape. Yeah, so that's cool. I'll have to look up hemming tape. All I did right now, just to kind of make it look a little bit better, because it was definitely like sagging underneath with the pleats, is I just grabbed paper clips and I kind of like clipped it up so that the bottom wasn't like drooping in like an ugly looking kind of U shape. But it was functional. I knew I was leaving for my business trip. I wanted to get it done. I wanted to watch a movie with the family. There's migration right there. That's what we ended up watching. So I'm like, this is good for now. And it's a process. There's probably more to do to optimize it and all that stuff. So here's where I did screw up, actually. So learn from this one. And I talked about it in the blog too. One of the things is so now like, this is it. This is the ultimate. One of my goals now is like, I want this image deadlocked to the edges of my screen. That was one of the things I really struggled with on the ceiling mount as well, which is like with 3 dimensions of rotation, yaw, and tilt. I had a really hard time getting a good squared image up on the screen. So I had a fair amount of overscan going on, and I wanted to try to get this as tight and as clean as I could get it, real tight to the edges, minimum overscan. So I spent a bunch of time. I was down there one night, probably a good hour. It's like every little minute shift, zoom, back and forth, zip it, trying to zip it all right in. And I was going back and forth kind of between the JVC, what's the word I'm looking for? Like the pattern, the shift zoom pattern, and content as well, because I find sometimes it's useful to turn the pattern off and actually have a widescreen piece of content up. Well, as you could see from earlier in the video, I had Star Wars up, Empire Strikes Back. Well, Empire Strikes Back, right, is as I believe is a 240-to-1 movie, and I did a bunch of positioning, meticulous positioning, using the Battle of Hoth, and wondering why, like, man, I'm getting some weird, it's like forcing me to overscan in weird ways, and it's not filling the way I expected it to. Well, right, doofus, you're dumb. I have a 235 screen. It's a different aspect ratio, ever so slightly. And so I realized after the fact, I realized that, and I'm like, oh, shoot. So I redid it all, focusing more on using the test pattern than content. But I've got this dialed in real nice, real slight overscan, really what you want. It's as level can be. The screen itself, right, and just wall, everything. Anybody knows, right, doing this stuff. Nothing ever is like completely 90-degree square, exactly the way you want it, exactly the way that it should be. There's always tolerance and variances and whatnot. The other thing that I think I realized is, I wish I would have done my mounting slats for the screen farther apart, because I think the frame actually of the Seymour has a little bit of like a bowing to it, where maybe those mounting slats are a little close together in the middle, so there's a lot of weight of the screen centered in the middle versus spreading them out more. Again, this is a constraint because I had to put them in certain places based on where I had my prior screen and stuff like that. So there's like a little bit of a geometry curvature in the top of the screen, and I think it extends to the bottom a little bit as well. So, but that's fine. You can overscan that out. It's not a big deal. So, and the other thing that I did, I think when I originally installed the screen, I did my best with leveling and trying to keep two independent brackets in line and stuff with each other. However, you do what you can. You can only do so good. But I've discovered the merits, which I think I have it right here. Yeah, the merits of one of these guys, a cross-line laser level. This thing is amazing. I don't know why it took me so long to go looking for one of these. I bought it because of this room. I know I wanted to have all these comic covers and their frames squared up to each other and everything nicely aligned. So I think probably what I'll do at some point is actually take the screen down, pull those mounting brackets down, use the laser level, and redo them out to the very edges, as far left and right as I can get them on the lumber that they're installed. So I screwed that one up, but it's great now. It's as square as it's going to get. It's as solid as it's going to get. Did all the projector setup, zoom, focus, and all that, and then set up the NV field of pixels all around it. No more vertical, no more need for anything. I have a true constant image height setup, not a variable image height and variable image width setup. Now constant image height. Every movie aspect ratio can fill top to bottom like you would really want it to. I can play with NLS and stretching only in one dimension, horizontally, and yeah, it's really great. So that's it. Again, it really fired some folks up. But I'm not done, and I'll be back. I'll fix up the vlog as I have it, and stay tuned. If I get some temperature monitoring, I'm gonna really put it through its paces and make sure. Again, probably this this opening even a little bit more than I did. Like additionally, let more of that hot air out. I think, oh, there we are. That's me. The cool air is getting in. I can ventilate that shelf underneath. So lots of things, lots more things that could be done there. I'm gonna do a side search here. Hemming tape so that I do not forget to look that up on the side. But I really would like to have a very clean cutout pass through and all that when it's finalized and when it's done. But I don't want to do too much as well now, perhaps, because I'm really hoping that the remainder of my time, yeah, all in time, just get a new projector. Exactly. So once again, these elements of the system, I hope they're temporary. Yeah, it's all a conspiracy. It's really a conspiracy theory. If I just break the NX7, then we need a new projector. Oh man, there was an NZ9 plus DCR available, let's say from a really well qualified community person around the AV space at a really great price, and I was seriously considering it, but I don't have the funds to pull it off right now, and I'm really trying to wait. If we get the six, my ultimate goal is to continue to retain earnings, retain channel money, and be able to move to the NZ9 successor immediately this year, assuming that they're announced and then released. However, if an NZ9, if an NZ successor line is not announced at CEDIA, my alternative plan is I'm buying an NZ9 that day. the first day of CEDIA if there's no announcements. 'Cause by September, I should hopefully be able with channel partnerships and being able to work with some folks, maybe do some collaborations and things. That's my plan right now is to wait, exercise patience. But my immediate focus is the MadVR anyway, so I want to figure the remainder of that out and see kind of where that ends up and where we go with that. Just looking back through the comments here, if I missed anything, Pavel saying makes me happy. I have a 20-foot ceiling throw. Nice. Nice. Yeah, I'm like 18 feet 4 inches, I think is what the throw is right now. But I think ultimately the ultimate thing to do will be to probably pull the projector even more forward, give it more clearance in the back, and just open up the entirety of the curtain hole so that the face of the projector sticks out into the room. And then the future lens assembly can just be forward of the curtain. All the hot air blows out, and then I've got all that space behind it and all that unobstructed flow. So that's I think where I'll end up. But again, I can only cut so many times, as in once before the material goes away. So yeah, Sam, you could do 2 separate curtains to make it so that spot is open. 2 separate curtains. Oh, like leave a hole. I'm not sure I'm following you. Like maybe 2 curtain sections just on either side of the projector. But then yeah, actually what I probably could do, if I were to do that, actually what I probably would do, that might be a way to go actually, would be to yeah, one from the top. Yeah, one from the top. It'd be one on the side, one on the other side that go from ceiling to floor that come up to the sides of the projector, and then do a third piece that goes from the ceiling down to the top of the projector, and then just leave everything from the projector down open, something like that. Yeah, cut it full length. And then because I'm still leaving those, let me see if I can pull this back up again. I'm still leaving those base traps in front of it, so they would cover it up nicely, actually. So there's options. I could even hang like a curtain off the shelf behind that, off of the plywood behind it. Lots of ways to go about it. So I'm completely confident that this was the right thing to do, and some of the particulars of it will be, like say, fully figured out and committed over time. Actually, let me go back to the video. Let me scroll back. Yeah, stop right there. Okay, yeah, I'll show this. So that's where the base traps are falling. So they're almost to the bottom of the projector anyway. Actually, if I took one layer of those boards off, the projector would be like right over the top, just about, of those base panels, and then those would obscure the opening, everything below that point. So yeah, tons of options. It's going to work out fine. So I'm not voiding anybody's warranties. I'm not telling anybody to fry their projectors. If you don't like what I did, don't do it. Right? Don't do what I do just because I did it. I'm not necessarily even advising anybody to do what I did. But think about your spaces and how to optimize them. It's a fun part of the process, right? Maximizing what you have, trying to figure out how to do stuff better. And unequivocally, I think this is far better. So I'm super happy with it. I want to go back and hit a couple of Where did I see it? Oh yeah, drop zone. Yeah, he said earlier, get 85 nits on an NZ8 with a Panamorph, 172-inch screen. So slightly bigger screen. Yeah, 85. I think was it Ryan on their with him and Michael's podcast talking about his new crazy Uber room. But I think with the Zen Z9, he was like over 150 nits, did he say? Or maybe that was with the Christie where he would be. So I'd like to get up much higher. An NZ9 will definitely get there. So I'm not worried about the future, and it's quite good right now. Depot and Lowe's know me well. Nice. Oh, there was a couple questions about processors. That's what it was. Yeah. No processor for drops. No processor considering a Lumagen. Okay, so that's where the question came in. So yeah, we're at an hour and 20. I'd like to talk some MadVR, but we're not going to go too much longer. I'll give some initial thoughts though. If anybody has any specific like MadVR questions, feel free to fire them away. Hey, if you want to throw them on a super chat too, that option is always available to you. I will plan to do probably the next stream, which could be hopefully next week or whatever. I want to do. We'll talk more about the MadVR, and then I want to do one of the things that I do that's a little unique is those like all abouts where I want to sit down in the theater. I want to show my screen. Right. We'll see if we can get taken down again, like we did in the Lumagen one, because we played with Chris Deering. We played the video a little too much, trying to show off some of the aspect ratio management and things. We'll avoid that. Hopefully, I'll avoid that this next time. But I'd like to do that. Take questions, show it off. But what have I done so far on the MadVR? I did the big video. I did the settings video, the menu overview. I really like making stuff like that because for me, when I'm evaluating, when I'm buying something, like that's the kind of YouTube content that I try to go find about the things that I'm interested in and how do they work and give me the details and stuff like that. So that's the stuff that I like to make. So it's long, almost a half an hour, I think. But if you really want to see the flexibility and the options and the power, all available in the MadVR, that's the one. I'm even drawing a blank on the other videos, MadVR videos that I had put up. I thought there's been a couple. Oh, the HDMI one talked about the HDMI config and where it sits in your system and stuff like that. A little bit more Lumagen comparison in that one, and then of course the unboxing. All right, so if I give some initial MadVR thoughts, and this is off the cuff, I was preparing tonight to go through that installation video. Not really this, so you're getting really raw off the top of my head kind of thoughts. But I do have to say that I really like it, quite honestly. And I can say that. Let me say right off the bat too, because I think people listening, like the Lumagen versus MadVR stuff, I think is a little overdone. You definitely have warriors on the sides of those camps. You have people that own one or the other and are very emotionally invested in what they bought and wanting to justify that that honestly the more expensive thing is worth the money, and other folks that spent less wanting to feel that, hey, they have something that's really good too. And so I think both of those devices are really good. They do exist at different price points, and those price points are a real consideration for real people. There's no doubt about it. And you spend the money that you have to spend or that you want to spend in this hobby if you feel something gives you features, capabilities, fit and finish, premiumness, whatever it may be that you're after, right? You decide to spend it or not. So we can talk about the MadVR, and we can talk about the I forgot what I was going to say now. So I think it's really great. I think I think the fit and finish is awesome. It is a really premium built thing. I would love to just be able to buy the PC case and put my gaming PC in it, like full stop, right there. Build quality is really good. I think it's a PC. You can look inside and you can see the PC parts, but it's running some pretty hefty software. And I do have to say, as somebody that commercially develops commercial software, uh, sold in a for-profit company, software engineering is a difficult and challenging thing. And companies that sell products, and this goes for Kaleidoscape too. It's not necessarily only about the hardware. There's a lot of software engineering that goes into those, and that software engineering takes time and money and resources and all of that stuff. So it is what it is. They're doing things with the MadVR, whether you like what they're doing or not, motion AI and different things. It's delivering on some pretty crazy software features and development that kind of sets it apart, right? Um, there's no the usability is absolutely fantastic, and that is, I think, something that's a strong pro on the side of the MadVR. The menu, the accessibility in the menus, being able to tweak. And I know these devices, for many elements, like, you figure out what you like and you kind of set them and they do their thing. But MadVR is adding more stuff, and being able to get in to the menus and be able to easily uh, adjust it and tweak it and access those settings and have that flexibility, I think is really great. And as somebody that's like a bit of a tweaker, and wants to be able to do that with the devices that I have and kind of be on my own to capably and fully be able to make adjustments and update things and all that, I think that's a real standout feature. I covered it quite a bit in the menu overview. Actually, it was a little more of a menu overview and almost in many ways like a feature overview, right? But how you can just configure the thing to run and manage profiles and switch things and customize like what you want it to do, is really cool. And you can do all that stuff in Illuminagen too. But it's a different animal doing it. And if I were to, I think there's more to learn. The menus are not quite the update process, all that stuff, right? You need some help, and that's why there's guys out there like Chris. If I were to buy Illuminagen, I would probably go. My next call would be to Chris Deering and say, all right, hey Chris, when can you spend an afternoon with me and let's get this thing set up. But I feel really good about kind of knowing and understanding and using the Envy. So integration stuff is and all of, again, the accessible flexibility of it is crazy fantastic. Being able to set uh, the interaction between the Envy and the projector, filling the screen, the ability so easily to go into all these different aspect ratios. And if you want some stretch, do some stretch. If you want to do stretch and really fine tune the elements of like expansion and zones, and cropping and different spreads and things, right? You've got whatever, eight or nine different tweaky elements independently for every aspect ratio that the Envy identifies, in order to control its behavior and manage what it's doing. It's crazy, crazy flexible, crazy powerful, crazy good. The whole subtitle management thing, and all this stuff is things that I want to make more videos about. I have a whole list, like several more specific focus topic elements of like, what does it mean to have a MadVR in your system, um, that I'm planning to kind of follow up, that I'm alluding to these elements here now. But the black bar detection, I didn't, I actually haven't ran much of a subtitled movie through it, but you can test the black bar detection really easily with just using an Apple TV, uh, by virtue of using Apple TV with the menus, start a scope movie, and then have it pull up the playback menus just by kind of like pressing on the remote and having the stuff come up at the bottom. And then if you pick chapters, it comes up even higher, and watching how the aspect management, blips down, blips up, and you have so much control, right? You can control exactly kind of how you want the black bar management to go. You can set locks and delays, like all of this, again, behavioral customization. And it's all right there. Updates are instantaneous. It was actually recommended to go ahead, or for me anyway, change your settings, of course, at your own risk, to go ahead and put it in experimental and take the updates that as they come. And in just the few weeks that I've had it, there's been multiple pushes. You go into the menu, you get this nice little flag that says, "Hey, there's a new firmware update. This is the version." You go to the firmware update screen, and thank the Lord in heaven, what do you see? Feature bullets, patch list, right there, telling you like exactly, very succinct statements, but right, telling you exactly what was in the new load. You press go ahead and apply, and some of those updates like are done in not even 30 seconds, and they're not freaking patch notes that are like, aligned the universe and drank too much coffee. It's legit engineering patch notes. That's one of my pet peeves. That's one of my pet peeves. I saw the stupidest one. All right, little tangent. Let me see if I can still find it. We use this app called TeamSnap for my daughters. Probably not gonna be able to find it quick enough. Yeah, TeamSnap patch notes. One of us felt a gentle breeze carrying the delicate scent of spring, and suddenly we're all running around spring cleaning everything. So here you go. That's a patch note. What the hell? People, come on. You're not funny. We're dorky engineers. You're not funny. Tell me what you added to the app so I can take advantage of new features and bug fixes, please. So MadVR, spot on, dead on. Patch note list, it's all there. You can pick your level of how cutting edge you want to be on the updates, release builds, beta builds, or like full on experimental. I feel that the picture is insane. The picture is insanely good. Actually, Michael Lawless and I, we the other week, I messaged him. I'm like, "Hey, you want to see this thing?" So we hopped on a FaceTime, and he was sitting in his theater playing stuff, and I was sitting with the FaceTime showing the screen with the NV up, and all that. And I think it was we played Element. I was playing Elemental. I was jumping around in Elemental, Pixar movie, because that was one that the family we had just watched, I think, a few weeks ago, and so it was fresh in my mind. And I remember my visual memory of Elemental was that it looked good, but I felt it looked a little drab in a way, and I think that was probably the HDR performance, of the native of the projector. And I felt like Elemental looked a step function better, an order of magnitude better. And we were both, even looking through the FaceTime. Yeah, he's commenting right there. Even across FaceTime, he's like, "Wow, that looks really good." And I'm like, "Yeah, like looking at this in person, like I feel this looks tangibly better than I recall it looking before." And so we jumped through a variety of stuff, like did the Harry Potter thing. We did, um, the scene with against Voldemort and whatnot. That's probably the most famous MadVR HDR tone mapping scene. What's the other movie? The war movie. I'm gonna forget the name of it now. With the guy climbing up the stairs. Um, and like you can see, I saw things in that scene that I've never seen before, ultimately, but it didn't look overdone. Like it didn't look fake. It didn't look like it wasn't the way it was intended to look. Like the fact that 1917, yeah, like the dude's bleeding. I don't think I ever saw the guy bleed. The blood on his face in that. Um, I can't remember what other. We jumped around to a bunch of stuff. Some HDR, some non HDR, and so I've been flabbergasted with the visual performance. Super happy with the visual performance of it. I am still hopefully planning to try again. I got that second HDMI line set up. My ultimate goal is to run that back to the rack and then set up HDMI 2 of the projector in its JVC. Um, yeah, 1917. That was the one, later on. um, and I want to be able to have play the movie. And this was all in Kaleidoscape that we were demoing stuff, I think, pretty much. Some on the Apple TV as well, but be able to play a movie, have it go through the NV, and then have another input, and then be able to like jump back and forth between the tone mapping comparisons. I got to hit these too. Actually, I'm neglecting these, and super generous. So Pavel, thank you so much. Thanks for your content, Jeremy. Similar setups. Enjoy your takes. Awesome. Love to have you with us on the channel, with us in this journey. Drop some on $20. Thank you so much for your next Home Depot run. Been a good sport with this project. Yeah, I know. I'm being a little flippant. I didn't have any problem with anybody. My ultimate rationale behind pulling the video was I couldn't give this conversation due diligence in the comments, and I didn't want it to get like a little life of its own. So I thought something like this would be a better way to go. Hopefully the folks that were commenting right in the channel community get a chance to watch this and feel better that I'm not out here giving terrible advice. And even some of them, I don't remember specifically the kind of who was writing what, but it's like, God, like I really love your channel, but like this is not like this isn't good. I can't agree with this can't agree with this one kind of thing. So it's all in good. It was all in good spirits and sport and fun. Let me see. You know what? I think putting the video back to private wiped the comment history out. Can't see the comments anymore. Yeah, Pavel, 2 optical HDMI lines, 1 for gaming. Yeah, that's ultimately what the reason to have the 2 lines is the ability to do non-video processor processed gaming. One thing I did learn, and we discussed this in the comments, happily constructively in the comments of one of the MadVR videos, is I had thought everything on the MadVR was HDMI 2.1, and it's not. The GPU output, of course, is HDMI 2.1 because the 4000 NVIDIA series cards are. I know this from PC gaming, PC building. But the other I/O card that makes up the NV that has the input and the pass-through output, those are HDMI 2.0B. So I probably need to make an addendum, maybe even to the one video I made about the HDMI lines. If you're using a PS5 PC, or certainly like a PS5 Pro, and you've got an NZ projector, HDMI 2.1 projector, you really don't want to use the pass-through port of the NV for gaming. You would want to bypass it entirely because the input pass-through port would not fully support all of the things that you would want out of the gaming console, particularly with the PS5. If you have the right projector, you would want to be gaming at 4K 120 in like the 40 FPS performance modes. Generally, is what I would be doing if I had a PS5. And if you had a PC, then we're going to the moon, right? 4K 120. Unfortunately, projectors don't do VRR. Maybe the NZ successors could do VRR. That would be nice, but that stuff wouldn't work through there as well. So ultimately, the right way to do it, if you're doing it for gaming bypass, is make sure that you're completely bypassing the thing. The AVM90 has 2 main zone HDMI out, so I'm just going to do it, basically just do it that way. Drops. I had a guy in ABS tell me I should consider it a gift. Thank you for the drubbing. Thank you, sir. May I have another? So NB, pretty cool. Yeah, pretty cool to have additional visual details to the story, like the Harry Potter ghost thing, right? You really get to see the characters that are the ghosts. Like it's not just green plasma coming out of the wands, the wand battle. It's the spirits of the people that Voldemort killed, and that's important to the story. And the guy laying blown up and whatever in 1917, right? You really get more of a sense of his condition when you can see when you can see those bits and pieces. So I don't feel like some pundits or maybe some of the detractors would like say some of this HDR tone mapping processing is like being overdone and it's violating director intent and stuff like that. Well, I don't know, maybe if you tune certain things up a little too far or whatnot. But from what I've seen, and I'm using a set of settings that was recommended to me by folks, thanks to Sammy. Actually, Sammy um, graciously spent a bunch of time with me, uh, more than even was I think to be allotted, answering questions and kind of training me up on the MadVR. But I'm using a bunch of recommended settings, and I don't consider anything that I'm seeing to be in violation of director intent or anything like that. I think it just looks really good. Um, it looks punchier, brighter, and all that stuff than it certainly did before without. And again, hopefully, I can do the side to side and get some other folks over here as well to kind of corroborate what I'm seeing. Um, the other thing that I have tinkered around with, so the main stuff again, we had the setting the screen image space, aspect ratio management. I'm still kind of figuring out just how much stretch I may like to have um, in my setup. So 240 is an easy fill, 235 is an easy fill. And as you continue going down in aspect ratio, definitely like the next couple aspect ratios down 2.2. I think it's a really easy choice to just say, yeah, NLS, fill it. Just fill it all the way out to the sides. Um, to me, it's when I get down to about 185 where I don't know. Even right now, I think the way I have it set right this moment, I'm stretching 185 to the full width of the screen. Uh, but I'm still kind of messing around with okay, what settings do I want to use specifically to get there? 16:9. I have NLS turned off for 16:9 right now. One of the reasons for that is using an Apple TV and really being able to observe the negative effects of stretching in the geometry of the Apple TV menu in UIs. So, granted, I don't tend to watch a lot of 16:9 content in the theater, so I'm not too worried about it either way. Um, Usually, if we're going down there, it's to watch something that probably is wider than 16:9, and so I need to play around with that. The motion AI is really interesting, and again, I've already seen some folks like motion AI is fake, it's bad, etc. Like any motion processing, don't use it. To me, I would have to say like, and this is my personal opinion, of course. Like if you're going to spend so much money to buy something, buy it because you want to use all of its features. Like if you're going to drop 16K on an NV Extreme Pro, like you're doing it to run some motion AI. I could not imagine. I don't have the wallet space to buy something that much and then like not use the feature. I'd feel like I'm not getting all my value out of it. I'd want to be using as many of the features of the device as I can and consider whatever future capabilities and features and stuff come along as well. But quite honestly, like I've had motion AI turned on. We watched Migration with motion AI on the entire movie. And my wife is one that's usually she can usually pick up on motion anomalies better than I can. She has golden eyes, and I don't. She can pick up on lip sync anomalies quicker than I can, and so we watched that whole movie with motion AI on. I think it was tuned. It was tuned relatively low. It wasn't like on insane or anything, but motion AI outputting 60 hertz, and I never heard any complaints from her. And she complained about the G2 in there and some of its motion and having too much compensation turned on to kind of offset the OLED motion and needing to turn it down. Not a peep for the whole movie. Um, so I thought that was pretty telling. I played around with a variety of scenes with the motion AI. I showed them to Michael too. I think that night we were online taking a look at it. Baby Driver in the beginning when he's walking down the street and all that. There's actually another scene earlier in 1917 where they're walking through a trench that I kind of stumbled into, actually, just kind of like chaptering through. It's like, wow, this is a really good scene, because they're down in the trench, a couple of characters. I never watched the movie, right? We don't watch movies, video files. We watch our systems, and we watch demo scenes over and over again. Um, so there's two guys walking through the trench, and it's a long shot of them going through there, and there's different uh, camera angles and vantage points and stuff like that. Really interesting one to play around with the motion AI settings. Um, I don't even remember what else. I've watched a bunch, and the other big one that I always remember is the beginning of the Universal Marvel cinematic Incredible Hulk, where it pans away from like Bruce Banner kind of sitting there meditating, and then it's like Rio de Janeiro, right? I think is the city, and it's this super long panning upshot of all like the shanty town and the houses and stuff on the side, and like that scene to me is like an incredible torture test for motion on any display, and it annihilates the imagery, just gets annihilated. It gets absolutely wrecked. And so playing that with some motion AI on and just smooth panning, and you can certainly, you can turn it up to the point where it begins to go from smooth to kind of feeling not as real. Um, but like many of the settings on the device, you could use the setting, but you tune it to taste and find the middle ground, right, between having some positive impact in what you're looking at, and not being overdone or overblown, and all of that sort of thing. So, um, yeah, like especially the pan down the building in Baby Driver. Yeah, like because of that, like you can read things, in Baby Driver. I think Ryan pointed this out to me in a previous demo. Um, I forget the word. There's a word uh, sticker on the mailbox, and it's part of there's like a word. They hit a word in the song as he goes by. It's like you could never read that stuff at speed watching the movie, but when you have motion compensation stuff turned on, it's stable enough that you can see things. You can see things in the imagery that you couldn't see before. Right? Read words in the background and pull out detail and stuff like that. So I think it's cool. And I think any long standing future that I might have with an Envy in my system, I would be probably using Motion AI to some extent, most of the time. Um, another easy, I haven't done it yet. Actually, I don't have the MadVR in my Control 4 setup. So that's something that I could need to do, and get a feel for like using the Envy's remote itself. It's super easy to have toggles. You can turn things on, turn things off if you want them. NLS, yes or no. Motion AI, yes or no. It would be easy to, I think, also link those to custom button agents in Control 4, and be able to turn things on and off to taste if you wanted to in a specific film, like leave a default set of base settings, but be able to also tweak. Um, so I'm aware of some other stuff that they're working on in coming firmware that is like really really cool as well, like interface and control and management types of things. Um, so I'm really digging it. I'm having a good time with it. And I feel that I like one of those things. Like I feel I can do more stuff with it. The Lumigen was great. Like the Lumigen did a lot of great stuff. It had NLS. It had aspect ratio management. It had, I think, just as I had gotten it, they had improved, and it had effectively instantaneous subtitle adjustments. It had better HDR processing than the JVC did. All those kind of things. But I was a little afraid to like really dig into it more. Like Chris helped me set it up. We got it going. It's looking great, working great. Set it, forget it. But I think with the NB, I feel more. It's more of something that you can tinker with, because you have the ability again to. It has accessibility different than the Lumigen. Dropzone. Did you get a chance to test the auto aspect radio? Yes, yeah. So that was one of the things. One of the things I didn't do with the Lumigen was do a real hardcore HDR tone mapping comparison between the Lumigen and the JVC. which I presume it would be excellent. It would be better, improvably better than the JVC. I thought the Lumigen looked great, but I wasn't able to kind of quantify it. I never bypassed it. Like I just didn't have the ability to do it and the time to do it and stuff like that last year during that stint. But I would say that uh, the auto aspect ratio stuff on the Lumigen, it did work. It did work great. Subtitle flipping, going into content, going out of content, right, and being able to set up a variety of those things. You can do it. My throat's starting to get raw. All right, so here, question of the day. Julius, do you think you'll keep the MadVR? If anybody would like to drop a $16,000 super chat, feel free. No, but I don't know yet. I don't know. It's we'll see. I really like it. I would like it to just stay. If it can stay and things work out for that to happen, I would be happy for that to be the case. And if it doesn't, and I decide later on, maybe if it does go away and other things transpire, I really do more and more in the system. The end game for the system really has to be video processor, NZ9 or successor, and likely the lens, like all three, the trifecta. And I don't think the video chain in my projector in my system will get any better than that. To get better than that, we've got to go to like Barco's and Christie's and other things that I wouldn't even consider touching anytime soon or in my current setup. But in the long run, I could be happy having a Lumigen in my setup. I have the MadVR Envy in there now, and I would like to keep it if I can. If things work out, we'll see. There's a lot of conversation that needs to happen. We'll see where things go. Oh yeah, the other thing, this is great as well. Again, giving props for accessibility, giving props to the menus, the updates, and all that stuff. I love this too. Contextual help on screen, and I showed this in the menu overview. When you're in the menu of the Envy and you're going through different options, down on the bottom left is a pop-up with I would say pretty technically well done text describing whatever setting you're on, giving you some explanation about what it does, how it works, what the options would be. They even tell you like what some of their recommendations are in the contextual help. So I love that. I think everybody knows the channel and some of my like technical background and whatnot. I focus a lot on usability, UIs. It's one of the main reasons I like Anthem as a brand so much. I think they have one of the best web UIs and configuration and like usability options out there, flexible options like the virtual input stuff. And Envy has a whole bunch of virtual profile management, things like that. I really like those things in my devices and in my setup, and so it's definitely hitting very positively along a variety of those lines. So that's, I guess, a first take, hot take kind of thought. I do have a big old list of plans. Let me reference what I was thinking will be coming. I don't want to give too much away, but I do want to do more about, again, screen setup, aspect management, stuff like that, black bar, subtitle management, NLS, hopefully be able to do like shoot off HDR performance. I want to try to look at as well. One of the things that I think I noticed, and Michael can even attest to this, is I think like having the NV in the chain made like the HDMI management between the source device, the Anthem that it's going through, the video processor, and the projector, like faster, more efficient in a way. Without the Envy, I'm very much used to the concept in my system where I press play on a Kaleidoscape movie or whatever, and I've got audio long before I have video. Now, granted, a lot of things are changing in there from like a Kaleidoscape menu to a movie we're changing from SDR to HDR. We're changing from 60 hertz to 24 hertz. We may, depending on the settings, we could be changing color space from like 422 to possibly 444. So there's a lot of renegotiations and resyncings and stuff like that, to the point where it's routinely the case, right? You start a movie and then I immediately pause it because we'll be listening to the start of the sound many seconds before the image is on the screen. And I think with the NV, and I've got it set up so that the NV is outputting SDR, BT2020 SDR always. It's taking in HDR and then it's mapping within that space. And having the consistency of that in the chain between its inputs and the projector speeds that up to the point where, like, yeah, things were synced up. Yeah, it seemed like things were synced up better with less delay. Video and audio were occurring more simultaneously. And if you really go the extra mile, this is probably one of the things I'll talk about in the HDMI handshake video, is like stuff that you can do if you so choose, right, is to run your menus at lower refresh rate. So Kaleidoscape, you can set it to output 4K, 422 all the time, 24 hertz, and then the menu will be there. And then when you start playback, the only thing that's changing is like SDR to HDR, assuming that the movie you're playing is HDR. And you can get like darn near instantaneous boom, like audio, video, playback, ready to go. On the Apple TV, you can even get it. You can get it even one step closer because you can do the same thing. Apple TV menus, 4K, 24 hertz. And the Apple TV lets you run the menus in HDR. So going from an HDR menu to an HDR movie is even one less. I had it set up like that to kind of tinker around and evaluate, and it's wild. And then because you have motion compensation running on the lower refresh rate signal for the menus, a lot of the stutteriness that you would normally get out of a slower refreshing menu is compensated for by the motion algorithms. So you get all the benefit of this like insanely fast playback capability, but at the same time, you're not dealing with the detriments of doing that in quite the same way. So pretty interesting. It makes me almost, if I were to run it that way, it makes me wish Kaleidoscape needs to put in an option basically to run an HDR menu as well, so that you don't have to have, again, most of the time, probably what we're watching nowadays is HDR content. So that would be cool if Kaleidoscape did that. I will admit, right now, I do have it set up that I do have the menus back to native 60 hertz. But it's still, so the HDMI syncing is still much quicker than it was before. And I think in some ways, I think I still prefer the native 60 hertz menus versus the 24 motion AI menus. But at the same time, in the theater, I'm not able to, let's say, not able to maximize the value benefit. That's the wrong way to say that. Let's say I can't utilize motion AI to its fullest because I don't have an HDMI 2.1 projector. This is another reason why it's like Jonesing again for the NZ upgrade, because motion AI could output on an NZ projector or HDMI 2.1 projector. You could output 120 hertz, or you could output 48 hertz even, and you get a better cadence and less resources required for what the NV needs to do in terms of motion AI. Right, 24 frames per second in a movie content doesn't translate well. It needs to compensate to output at 60, but with an HDMI 2.0 B projector, 18 gig HDMI, that caps out at 4K being 60 hertz. You have a little bit of an uneven cadence out of it. So I understand and I believe that on an NZ, like, or its successor, the Motion AI would even be, it would be that much better of a setup to use it under. And so maybe that in that case, I might be more inclined to go ahead and just run lower refresh rate source UIs and see how it goes and see how it looks. But it's interesting. Again, it's all to taste. And like if you have this in your system, you need to try all these things out ultimately, um, and figure out how you like it, where you leave it, and ultimately kind of how you want to use it. A couple more comments. Michael saying K needs to add an audio video. Yeah, that would be another way to go for sure. If the source device on play could just delay audio in some way to synchronize the two. But it definitely it sucks in our theaters sitting in the dark, for what can be sometimes like 20 seconds, especially if you're doing, you're using your color filters and a JVC, and then not only does all that HDMI stuff have to happen, but the color filter has to slide into place. And, we're all just kind of like just sitting uncomfortably in the dark, wondering how long it's going to be for the for the image to come up while the movie's already playing and we're listening to what we're doing. And even then, even worse, right? If you're doing lens memory, it could be like a whole minute, I guess, probably before your video system is ready to go ahead of your or behind your audio system. One of the other things I need to tinker around a little bit more with the NV as well is delay. I feel like initially I wasn't really noticing on initial setup. I felt like I wasn't really noticing lip sync delay, and I couldn't find a good search result to tell me if whether Anthem supported like what they call like an HDMI auto delay adjustment, which is something that was like in the MadVR docs, that it can communicate back to your audio processor or receiver so that everything stays in sync without you having to manually adjust delay, which is nice. Again, stuff like that, the more it can just happen automatically and everything be the way it's supposed to be. Oh, is that me? Nobody can hear me? Test 1, 2. Looking for confirmation. Okay, Michael says he hears me fine. All right, cool. Yeah, Julius, might be your setup there. Okay. Shoot, what was I saying now? Delays. Yeah. So I feel like initially I didn't notice a lip sync delay, but after getting everything real finalized and set, I feel like I was noticing a delay, and I did end up setting some audio delay in the Anthem actually. I think I got it right. Again, I watched the whole movie with my wife. Granted, it was animation, but there's still a tight coupling of the people's mouths moving in animation to the sound that you hear. And so, hour and a half movie, she never complained or brought up an idea that the sync was off. But I have a hard time with that stuff. I tried using Audio Advice. Actually, has a really good set lip sync delay video with all these different patterns and like knock knock knocks going off. And I found another one too. I was just looking on YouTube for audio delay settings helpers as well to kind of try to use multiple videos and corroborate the setting. I think I got it right. And this is where this part of the hobby starts to bug me, because I was watching migration for the better part, especially probably the first half of the movie. I wasn't watching the movie. I was watching the system, and I was really trying to stress my eyes and my ears to say, like, is everything right? Does everything look good? Does the motion AI is turned on? Am I noticing anomalies? Is the audio and the lip sync audio video to lip sync the way, is it clean? Is it crisp? Is it the way it's supposed to be? But luckily, after a while, I was able to detach my brain from that and just sit back and enjoy the movie. So that's one thing that I'm just not fond of, because I don't like having doubts, like, is it right, is it wrong, and stuff like that. So I'd almost look forward actually to doing maybe a bit of a meetup and having multiple people come over and say, help corroborate with me, like, does my lip sync, does everything look like it's supposed to be? Have a bunch of different eyes and ears kind of corroborate that, or maybe even as well, just take my wife down and, like, all right, I'm going to run this tone and I'm going to tweak these delay settings, and you tell me when it's dead on. So unfortunately, I don't know if that varies per source device or input as well. I wouldn't think it would. I would think it's more of like a audio processor to NV to display thing. But like, if you set it with a YouTube video, I can set it on the Apple TV, but there's no way to do it on Kaleidoscape. I don't think. I'll have to look and see. Actually, I can probably do this on the side. I don't believe Kaleidoscape has a lip sync like test tone. I know they have a variety of demo reels and stuff like that, but I've long, yeah, I don't. If I search for sync, I don't see anything in the store. This is stuff that they really need to add, I think, to the Kaleidoscape unit itself, is test patterns, a delay, lip sync, setting, video, stuff like that, that you could either kick them off. They're just native in the unit, and like, you could kick them off in the settings, in the player settings. Would probably be the way to do it. Actually, I would prefer, rather than downloading like lip sync video and then having that be on my movie wall. That would be kind of ugly. I suppose you could download it, use it, and then delete it, but I wish they would do some stuff like that. I like how Apple puts a variety of video test tones right into this, or video test patterns right into the settings and stuff like that. All right, let's see. Any other last questions, Michael? I watched some Apple streaming, thought it looked relatively poor compared to K. Do you think Envy makes a bigger improvement? Potentially so, for sure. And I covered this in the menu video, there's like 2 pages of settings where most of the stuff is, I have it disabled, and even like the recommendations are like, disable this. But if you have low fidelity sources, but we're talking, when I say low fidelity, like, we're talking cable boxes and like maybe DVDs and stuff like that. There's things you could turn on, certainly additional things you could turn on in the Envy that won't matter for more contemporary 4K HDR sources. If you're watching a stream maybe that has a lot of noise or artifacting and stuff like that, maybe some of those settings in the Envy could help. Yeah, but by and large, it depends on the stream, I guess, too. But to me, like, a lot of streaming is really good, and I probably wouldn't bother. The one thing was, you'd have to look at the settings as well and like see how they apply, because if like you turn this thing on, is it now like denoising all the content, right? Because the setting is on, or is there a way to tie it specifically to, okay, for this type of content based on some criteria or signal or detail, engage these settings, but otherwise turn them off, right? Or use some kind of profile, and then you may, depending on how you're able to tie that, you may have to kind of manually turn that on and off. So you'd have to, okay, I know I'm watching this, I'm going to use my control setup or whatever and engage a specific profile. So yeah, so that's my hot take, first take. It's been really fun, and again, I think like NVNZ9 lens, and I'll be a long time before something else, and Kaleidoscape too, right? Ultimately, you want the source to go with it. That's and there's really not much more to do beyond that in the video chain in this hobby, unless you want to start talking Barco and Christie. So it's almost interesting how much more there is to tweak in video than audio. Much more finite selection on the video side, I guess, until you get into TV panels, and you got a lot of choices. But projector space comes with a lot of very specific elements, but kind of once they're set, they're set. And let's see, a couple more questions, and then we'll kind of wind it up. Michael, do you think case sales have slowed down? Seen any referrals lately? There's still been a flow of them. It's been actually a while. I think K's been quiet, kind of almost since a little after Cedia. There hasn't been really any news, although we're already getting into March. So I think now we're into the zone where, are we going to see a new Strato in 2024, or maybe that could come? I didn't think we would see it in the first couple months, but springtime is getting to be announcement time for 2024. Apple just put the new Macs out, and I think we'll see some new iPads as well. So March is a new device time. Maybe we'll see it, maybe not. It could still be later in the year. I think the movie store, I do feel like just movie releases, the movie store has slowed down a little bit. I think some people on the forums were talking about some bigger releases. I forget which specific movies haven't hit the K store yet, but then others have. I'm actually looking at it right here. I think like Dune 2 is up for pre-order. I thought Kung Fu Panda 4. So I'm excited for that. I really like those movies. Is up for pre-order. Actually, I don't see Dune 2. I thought somebody had posted. So there's been a flow of stuff. There's been some 4K upgrades. Incredible Hulk actually did come back with Dolby Atmos now under Disney, not Universal. Wonka, I just bought Wonka. That was on sale the other day. Probably watch that soon. Happy to see migration right sooner than later. That was fun. So yeah, it's been a little quiet. It's been, Ferrari. That's the one I think that people were wanting. And Godzilla -1. Unfortunately, the K store is very bleak when it comes to kaiju movies. Like I'd love to be able to just buy the entire Godzilla history in my K library. So I also haven't made as much K content lately. I've seen other people starting to come out with more stuff around K. Michael got one as well, Youthman. He just did a video. So I probably need to refresh YouTube that and I'm the Kaleidoscape guy. I've been talking Kaleidoscape for years in a very open and hopefully very enlightening and helpful way. And a lot of my core Kaleidoscape content is now like 18 months old, to almost 2 years old. So I think I've got some ideas for how to readdress that and kind of reclaim my Kaleidoscape champion crown. So see what happens. One other just general question. What do you think the 4 SVS SB3000s also have performed well in your room instead of 16s? Probably, honestly. I've got the SB16s at minus like 20 calibrated, the volume setting on the units themselves. So I think my specific quote in my like kind of SB16 review was, in my space, these already have tons of headroom, and I can't imagine how much more untapped potential in headroom even bigger subs would provide. So yeah, I think very realistically, a smaller sub utilizing more of its potential would be effectively no different, because it also would not be pushed past the point of being strained when the SB16s are just like on easy mode. They're already on easy mode in my room. So I'd have to look at the details of that model, I guess, and compare them more deliberately to say, like, would that model do it? But I'll agree with the general concept that, yeah, at normal listening levels, and I don't go as loud as a lot of people go, like listening to other folks talk and doing demos at other people's houses and stuff. Like I I personally don't want to listen as loud as some folks do, let alone the rest of the family. So Anthem's volume scale tends to run a little lower in the number than I think I did with the Marantz, comparatively speaking. And like -10 on the Anthem is loud, really loud to me, let alone everybody else. So I'm usually never pushing -20. Maybe if I'm by myself, I would get down to -20-ish, maybe into the minus upper teens. But with the family, like we're at like -25, and I'm borderline getting asked to turn it down. So at those levels, yeah, very realistically, I could have smaller subs, and they would still probably have headroom, especially with 4. It's always cooler to have the bigger ones, though. All right, I think short of inducing illness because my throat is hurting, I think it's probably time to wrap up. We did everything I wanted to do tonight and more, so I'll make a last call if there's any additional questions, comments, thoughts, suggestions. My plan coming up, I think what you'll see coming is obviously more MadVR stuff, and I got my list of topics that I want to handle around the MadVR. I made the video, but I need to actually remake part of it. The Control 4 Halo remotes had a really big firmware update, version 1.7. So I want to highlight that and kind of give like a 1-year review of the Control 4 Halo. 1.7 actually really improved the Halo. So pretty happy with that. And then yeah, I'll get this Projector install vlog redubbed and go ahead and put it out anyway. See if we can restir some controversy. So yeah, that'll be what's coming in the near term, and we'll see where we go from there. Michael, that tuning session you did with me was a huge help the other day. Yeah, actually we just this past Sunday, right? Talking about Anthem arc and calibrations and all of that. So I'm available if folks out there. Happy to teach ARC, happy to help tune a system, happy to teach Control 4 programming, certain stuff, get you set up, Kaleidoscapes, Apple TVs, all the things that I really know, of course, or any just kind of like general, what would I do? If I were you, I had your system, I had your money, like thinking about this, thinking about that. Love those kinds of calls. I think they've all been really fruitful. Just reach out through the Techthusiasm_JP at outlook.com, or just go to jeremypowell.com. There's a feedback form there. Appreciate everybody's thumbs up, support, monetary contributions, and of course, all of that. Feel free to check out the channel memberships and absolutely as well, kind of shop with the affiliates. Or again, if anybody's looking for stuff, like I've got all the connections, all the folks that you see and some that you don't around the hobby and around YouTube and social media are all friends of mine as well. And I'm happy to make personalized recommendations depending on kind of what you're looking for, where you're at with your system, and kind of who might suit you best. If you're just looking for something easy order, you know what you want, and you still want some personalized service and excellent service and support, my go-to remains Audio Advice. All the links and details are down there in the description. There's more affiliates that I've added as well through kind of an affiliate broker. So Amazon is there, but Best Buy, Newegg, Target, there's additional ones to take care of. SVS as well. I seriously need somebody to buy something from SVS through my affiliate stuff. It's amazing. Like, quite honestly, that's been set up for a while, and not SVS, but like the third party is about ready. There's a period where, like, if you don't generate something, they remove you from the platform, and I'm like close to being removed. It's like thousands of clicks and not a single purchase. Sometimes I think like the stuff just doesn't work. But anyway, so yeah, if you're thinking about SVS stuff, please go through the links for that. I'd like to keep my third party affiliation if I can alive before they make me, before they throw me out essentially, or they start charging me to continue being part of that referral system. Not SVS. They're good folks. I really like working with them. So yeah, and I'm also kind of reaching out to folks. I'm also kind of thinking about travel. Really, I would really like to get to M-Wave. All of the home theater travel season is coming up soon. Like Scott Newby's having an event. I was chatting with him. I'd really like to make that if I can. Really like to make M-Wave. Of course, Audio Advice is coming around again, so hoping to see a lot of folks. I haven't established a travel plan yet, but a lot of things cooking, a lot of things cooking in the background right now. So, I think we're gonna call it. I really need to check up on the kids, and my wife is home, and I need some chill time before it's just time for bed and time to get up and do all the stuff. So, thanks for coming out, everybody. Hope we had a fun time. Going through my flipping, poking some fun, hopefully good natured reply to my travesty of a projector installation. But I think it's working pretty well. So reach out if you need to. I'll be back hopefully next week. More content coming as soon as I can get it prepped and ready to go. Thanks so much for watching. Come on back for more home theater discussion and fun. Thanks.